excited.
Welcome, everybody, to the Fall Line with Chaos and Company. We are super excited today to give you a great episode. And before we jump right in, we want to make sure we thank our sponsors just for the Fall Line with Chaos and Company. And Blizzard Technic has been with us now, 4 years, Angelo, and they've been kicking butt, some great stuff. And Nick's Boot Fitting with Nick Blaylock over near Mount Snow. Nick has been a super supporter. So if you need some boots, and let me tell you, that new Mach 1 with the 2.0 T-Drive is out there, and you can get it. And I know Nick has it in the shop, and it is skiing great. And then also spring, as much as we don't want it to come, we want to keep skiing. It's coming soon, especially here in the East. And Rollerblade and Miles Cotter Sparrow, man, get those blades, get out there and get ready for next season. I know down south, Jess Stith, man, they're getting ready for the bikes, and the snow was melting fast. He had 70 degrees yesterday and was going for a ride today. And we want to put a little thanks out, Angelo, to all the resorts that have supported us here in the East. We've had an amazing season so far with our PSIA-ASSI Eastern events, and I wanted to put a special thanks out to Ragged Mountain and Eric Barnes for hosting the intensive preps, and also Glenn Harrop up at Sunday River. It was really awesome up there. We had a great room, and once we got the TV to work, thanks to some of Glenn's crew, getting that going was awesome. And then we've had 3 amazing training sessions with the dev team at Cannon. Thanks, Evan Famaka, for having us in. And then Dan Hogan over at Wyndham. Super cool there. And then, wow, we had one this week at Stowe with 6 inches of fresh snow. And Ben DeBenedictis and Megan Kelsey got things set up for us. And we had 20 staff members up there, Angelo. 20. And then Jeb and I for the training. I think it's the biggest regional training day of the season so far. So it was super awesome. And Jeb was definitely on his game. Good thing. And so we've been having some fun. That's kind of what I've been up to. But Angelo, what have you been up to the last week or so? I know you're trying to get your last telly turns in.
Yeah. Telling a bit, working a bit. Trying to maintain the body. I don't know if I mentioned it last time we chatted, but I had a little bit of a back flare up. So a couple 3 chiropractor visits and acupuncture today. So just trying to maintain it, through next week.
I see you have Stuart.
Stuart's here. Yeah. For those folks who are on YouTube, that's Stuart. I guess he decided he's going to participate today. He does.
We'll see if he starts snoring like Jake used to.
Sure. Choking on a chicken bone or whatever.
Cool. So we have the podcast and the guest we've been waiting for all winter. We've been trying to work out schedules. It's been an interesting task, but super awesome. I know that Ellen Post Foster will be super happy. She'll be probably the first one jumping on to listen. But Ellie Matalavage, thanks for coming on. And I probably butchered your name, and Mr. Lipton will get all over me like he did when I called Levi Finland Levi. But that's cool. We can always check in to make sure Lipton's listening. Ellie, how's it going? What have you been up to?
I'm good. I'm great. Thanks for asking, Dave. Just been traveling a ton this season, which has been awesome. Like my rookie year on the team, I think I've traveled a good bit. I'm currently at Lookout Pass, kind of one of my low-key home mountains. I just came here from Utah. My most recent event was the Women's Summit at Solitude, which was a great event. I think everybody who attended and worked had a really good time. So I'm ready for a little downtime with my family.
That's cool. Awesome. Yeah. So first year on the team, been through training in the fall. You guys had a little training over at Vail a few weeks ago with the crew. That must have been fun. Yeah,
that training was awesome. Definitely thanks to Vail and the Logans for sponsoring that training. I wish it could have been longer. Oh my gosh. It's just really fun to be around the team, and that energy that everybody brings to the table is really cool. There was a group of 6 of us that actually went a day early and had a little free ski day together. So it felt a little longer for a few of us. And that was pretty awesome. We all skied Beaver Creek. It was a few of my team members' first time skiing there. And that was really fun to show them around the mountain.
So we're always jealous here in the East of the powder days. And Angelo will tell you, if it gets at least sidewall deep, that's considered a powder day in the East, right? Right, Angelo? As long as it covers the ski, and the Western crew laughs us, but how many powder days, and the way you rate a powder day, does it have to be over an inch, 2 inches, 6? Like how deep to be a powder day? And how many of you had this year?
The East Coaster in me says like 2 inches is a powder day. Pennsylvania representing all day. Angelo knows.
Yeah.
Gosh, I haven't brought out a ski bigger than 88 this year. I haven't not had a powder day. Like every time I was in the West, I was working an event at Crystal and then Alpental, and then we flew to Zoe and I were working out there, and then we flew to mid-season training. It dumped in the West. Then we get to Vail, blue skies, beautiful. As soon as training's over and Logan Academy's over, it dumps. I'm not there. So I actually haven't had a powder day this year. But it just reminds me of my childhood, I guess.
Yeah.
It's okay.
So we have to start in a little different direction. We'll get to the question that I know some of my listeners love of like your first day on snow, but it's pretty interesting what you do off snow. And I think it kind of sets the stage for your character and just kind of the grit and determination you have. Your off season, off snow jobs deal with like chainsaws and dump trucks, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, I guess my off-season job is unique. I'll own that. I currently work for a road construction company, and we only build roads for logging. So I run dump truck, log truck, chainsaws a couple times a week, not all the time. Running like front-end loaders, graders, excavators on a daily basis. It's a pretty wild job. Honestly, it's one of the craziest things I've ever done. It puts a lot of things into perspective. I'd say I'm generally scared at work every single day from some aspect of it. So yeah, it puts a lot of things into perspective for you.
Yeah. So is your job with the chainsaws and the dump truck, and it's probably shoveling and raking and all kinds of building roads? Nope, just driving the truck. So I'm wondering what you're.
Think we own a rake. Like I was doing some shop work around the yard, just tidying things up, moving things around, like shoveling things. Like my boss loves it because I get bored and I just pull weeds, take care of the shop. And I was like, hey, do you have a rake? I want to. He's like, we have an excavator. Why do we need a rake? And I was like, all right. Cool. No, I don't do anything by hand. Yeah. So I'm sitting all day, sitting in a dump truck, sitting in a grader. Sometimes I stand when I operate equipment if it's set up that way. Just dump trucking.
So what is your off-season regime to stay at that performance level you need and physical level to get it done?
I'm kind of on Angelo's plan of I don't go to the gym. I just can't do it. It's I think someday I will. Maybe I don't. That's a lie. I don't think I'll ever be a gym person. I really don't. I live on a ranch in Idaho that's about 400 acres, the parcel I live on. So occasionally after work, a couple times a week, I'll go for a run. I don't like it. I don't enjoy it, but it's good for you. So I do it. I'll usually talk to friends on the phone a lot because I don't get a lot of face-to-face interaction in the summer just with my job and the hours that we work. So I'll usually, when I call my friends, I'll walk around the property or stay active that way. As much sitting as my job is, it's pretty physically strenuous. I do hop in and out of my truck between 8 to 35 times a day to load the truck. And a lot of times the roads that we drive on are so gnarly that you're just so tense because you can't actually sit in the seat. It'll just rattle you around. So you're actually kind of propped up all day. So some good core activity going on there. But I don't, everyone's going to hate me. I don't work out. I just don't. I just do it with I'm fit from my lifestyle. And that's just the way it is. Yeah.
Angelo, I love her even more now. I love it. Just right up our alley, man. No gym, just out in the.
She understands many things.
Oh man, that's awesome. Awesome. Oh God.
So Ellie, we connected straight away when we met the first time. And some of that was, there was probably
because I'm a fan, Angelo.
Well,
no, I was fangirling. Let's clarify.
And I was fanboying because here I'm catching wind of this hot shot up and comer, just killing it from Tussey Mountain, which is just right up the road from me. And I just love that. Not only are you from a small area, you're from a really small area. Yeah. And wonder if you'd talk about that a little bit for the folks that are listening, like a bit of the history of Tussey, how you got involved there, and just what it's like, because it's a cool little spot.
Yeah, I'm breathing. It makes me emotional sometimes. Tussey Mountain is my home mountain. No matter where I work, no matter where I live, like Tussey will always be my home mountain. It's small. We say it's like 360 vertical feet if you count the parking lot. People ski through that all the time, so we count it. Tussey. So I don't know anything but Tussey. I was born and raised there. So my parents met working in the ski industry in the 80s, working at different resorts in upstate New York. That's where they're both from. So they started working at different resorts and bouncing around. And my dad took a job at Tussey Mountain, I think in like 85, as the technical director of the ski school. And he was hired by Kim Sievers. So that has enough weight alone to just stop there. But my dad got hired as a technical director. He worked there for a season. He enjoyed it. My mom was working at offices at ski areas, and Tussey did not have a group sales program. So my pop, I guess, went into the office and was like, oh, I know this great person who could help with the group sales program. And my mom came down the following year, and they had run Tussey till 3 years ago. So like 40 some years. My whole life is growing up at Tussey. My siblings all learned to ski there. I have an older sister, Abby. And when she was learning to ski, I was in a backpack on my parents' shoulders. And then when I was learning to ski, I have a little brother, John, and he was in the backpack, and my sister and I were on snow. And we're all still working in the ski industry. We're an industry family, and I love that about us. Tussey's got definitely some pretty deep PSIA roots, which I'm pretty excited to share. So obviously Kim Sievers, adaptive coach and Paralympic coach, director, executive director. I could go on. I mean, everybody knows Kim's pedigree. And if you don't, there's some great articles about her. You should definitely look it up. And the people from Tussey that I remember the most are probably our team members are Lipton. Eric's going to hate this, but here we go. I've known Eric since I was like 5 years old. That's how old he was when he was attending Penn State when I was a little kid taking ski lessons. He doesn't like when I share that story. So sorry, Eric, had to. So Eric was there around when I was a kid. Kim was there. And then the person I probably remember the most from growing up at Tussey that was a team member was Brian Spear, who was the first on the first snowboard team. I believe he's a coach. He's in my phone as Uncle Brian. Like he's just he taught me how to pump on the swing set. It wasn't just at Tussey. He was a part of our family. We'd go fishing. I thought he lived at my house when I was little because I would go to bed and he was there, and I'd wake up and he was there, and he was just always at my house. So I thought he lived there. Yeah. That's then Mikey Franco. He's another snowboard teammate who works at Jackson Hole, another Tussey alum. So there's quite a bit of us. It's a pretty hefty group to be a part of, all from this really small, down home, locally owned, family owned ski area. Yeah.
Local to Penn State, and then and I just have to say, like looking off the backside of Tussey, like toward Rothrock State Park, what a beautiful, gnarly part of Pennsylvania, like right in the middle, and it's legit. It's really, really nice. Yeah, good setting.
Yeah, it's beautiful, and there's world-class mountain biking in Rothrock right behind Tussey. So for people that are working at the university, because that's majority of the people that work, take up a lot of the bulk of State College. there's some pretty great amenities. And for a long time, I don't know if a lot of people know this, Tussey was owned by maybe like 6 local businessmen. And it until my mom started being the GM, it actually didn't really make much money. They did it as like a service to the community. And then when my mom got the promotion to GM, they kind of scolded her for making too much money and like changing their tax bracket or something. It really was like a service to the community. So we have in the summer, there's par 3 golf, there's driving ranges, there's a skate park that was there, batting cages, and we do a ton of events for the university for different companies. So it really was like part of the community. I couldn't go anywhere and someone not know my parents, like grocery store, bank, post office, get ready to say hi to someone in town because they knew my parents.
So you probably can't remember your first experience on skis, because I imagine it was pretty young, and it must have been at Tussey. We have to assume that. Yeah. So and it could be considered in the backpack was probably the first experience on snow with skiing, because you were skiing, just your feet weren't in the boots and that. But what's your first thing you remember? Like, do you have a day that you remember as kind of the farthest back? I remember skiing at Tussey, like my youngest years.
Have a memory. I kind of don't even know if it's like how real it is because it's so far back. The second fairway of the second hole of the par 3 golf course is right by the quad. I don't even know the real name of that chair. We just call it the quad if it has one. It was a pretty gentle slope, and I remember being a little kid, and there was these wooden cutouts of animals, and there was a purple gorilla. I remember being scared of it, but you had to do a pizza before you hit the purple gorilla, and it was like an actual piece of plywood, so you didn't want to hit it anyway. It was not like learning these days where there's those like cushy little zip things around all the things in the beginner area. Like you actually got some carnage if you hit the purple gorilla. And I remember just having to do a pizza, doing a wedge to stop before I hit it. That's my first memory, and like I said, I don't know how real it is.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So when were you hooked? Like when did you start teaching? Was it earlier than 14 or 16? And then, but like when were you hooked on skiing? Was it right from when you were doing that pizza to the gorilla?
I always had such positive experiences with skiing. I don't know if it was because like that's what my family did, so that's what I do. So I was always pretty hooked on it to the point where I would ask to go skiing like every day after school. We have night skiing, which of course makes any East Coast mountain attainable to ski every day of the week if you can. But I just remember always loving it. Yeah. I started teaching when I was 14. I was in the development program for years. And then I kind of aged out of like the little kid program, the development program. That's what it was called at Tussey. We didn't have a fancy name. And you could either go ski racing or you're kind of done. And I was like, I don't want to ski race. Like, I don't want to stand around on the hill all day. So I was like, I guess I'll just start teaching. I remember my new hire group really well. There's a few of us that are still working in the industry. A guy named Adam Swank, I think he's working up in New Hampshire still, and my sister and myself. My friend Allison was in part of my new hire crew, and I loved it. I think Derek Canova was our new hire group leader, and he did such a great job that we all had so much fun. And I was like, why would I not want to keep doing this? And I was hooked. I taught all the time when I was 14. I remember I had a shadow my first ever lesson I taught at 14 because I had just been doing it so long. They assumed that I knew what I was doing, and I did not. I was a 14-year-old punk just trying to teach someone how to get down the hill safely because I knew after my 1.5 hour lesson, they were going to ski to the bottom anyway. So I had to get them down, figure it out, and ride the chairlift in an hour and a half. But yeah, I was hooked. I loved it. It didn't like my pop was in PSIA. He was probably full cert or associate cert back in the day. I can't remember like when it switched, but it's just in the blood. Mm-hmm.
Now you've been everywhere, or at least a lot of places.
A lot of places.
And you know, the East's reputation with ice is well known. I don't know that all of our listeners realized we had gorillas to deal with too, but can you talk about, since you've been all over and you're very well traveled in the States for sure. What are some advantages somebody from a little mountain like that may have?
Yeah.
You know, over somebody who I think we typically associate West with being better. It's bigger and, you know, bigger, better. But like, what advantages do you think you have because of growing up there?
Oh man, I think it really like drives your fire within a sport to be at a small hill, especially people that are from the East Coast or like the Midwest, where you're not challenged by the terrain. The challenge like has to come from you. You have to really want to keep getting better and driving forward and challenging yourself, because you can't rely on what's around you. And to ski in the rain for like 5 days a week, and you have to love it. Like, it's not the chairlift and you're just sitting there and you're just getting soaked. And we didn't have a bubble. No. Or heated chairs. Like, you have to love it. And that's what I love about, like, I love going east. I love going to the Midwest, because the stoke is so high. Because if you don't absolutely love it, you're not sitting on that chair getting soaked. Or it could be minus 20. Like, the temperature variations are insane. And a lot of times the conditions are not that great because of it, but we all love it so much that it brings you out. And I think one of the cool things about being at a small hill is you get bored. So what am I going to do so that I'm not bored? I didn't have to be at the ski area every day. My parents did not make me ski every day. They didn't push it on us at all. I just wanted to be there. And I started like doing a lot of freestyle stuff. So I started hitting rails and jumps at like 15, 16, maybe even earlier, but more seriously as a teenager. And I did community races. I raced a little bit for sure. So I think it showed you variety within the sport. Otherwise you were just like, well, I'm just going to do the same run, doing the same turns that I did yesterday and today and 2 weeks from now. And so I think it did kind of broaden my knowledge and range of like different aspects of the sport. I do remember like going to J Peak with my family or my little brother and his friends, and we were all like, wow, imagine how good we'd be if this was our home mountain, because we'd never been out west. Like, we thought that was the coolest thing ever. But really, we were all really, really dedicated to getting better and like landing that next trick and standing on one ski better and like doing little silly things to keep us going. And on Sunday mornings, even like we would have no ski school lessons till like 11 o'clock. So we started the Tussey Challenge, which was you had to start in the locker room, and then you had to ride every single chair and every run, and then come back into the locker room and time out. And it took about 28 minutes. So we would put our skis on the snow, like flat, and someone would start the timer. Door would already be open. Like, people were starting different strategies. Like, which run do you ski first? Do you go from the main down to the bunny slope, so you're not skating to the bunny slope? Like, where do you save this time? Like, it was, you got creative out of boredom. And I think that really sparked a lot of interest in skiing, because I don't get bored. And I never will on my skis. And there's always something to learn, whether it's how to shave a half a second off your Tussey Challenge time, or how to do a javelin turn better and not drop your inside hand or whatever. And I love that that's what it taught me. And I don't even think I realized it until 3 or 4 years ago. And I can't imagine a better place to grow up, a better, like, safer place to be a kid, to have fun, to learn a lot, to make mistakes. Do you want a Tussey story of me getting in trouble?
Oh yeah.
Of course.
Oh yeah.
This
is Chaos and Company.
Okay, so me and my little brother were skiing after school one day, or on a weekend, can't remember. We were like 7 and 9, and we saw someone straight line Utah, which is like our main blue run. And we were like, whoa, we've never done that before. That's something new. Let's try it. And I was like, I don't know, man. Should we do this? And he's like, I don't know. So we went down like the steep part, and we straight lined from the bench. So from like 3/4 of the way up, all the way to the bottom. And we were like, whoa, that was crazy. And we hear Tussey Mountain had an intercom system. mostly to announce like school groups when your school group is, your bus is leaving or, hey, you guys have to load the bus in 15 minutes. Well, someone from ski patrol saw me and my little brother do this. And, over the intercom, we hear, John, Thomas, Elizabeth, Margaret, please report to the main office. And we're just like, oh, no. And we like took our skis off. We're at the bottom still. We haven't got on the chair. It happened so fast. Put our skis over our shoulder, start sweating, walk to the office. We were not allowed to ski for 2 days. We never did it again. Never. What ski area is so small? They have an intercom system at the bottom, and you can hear it across the whole ski area.
Perfect.
Yeah.
We got to figure that out for next year at Killington, Angelo. She's coming down superstar. We're like, okay, Elizabeth, Margaret, you need to come to the main office, K1.
I'm thinking about taking a megaphone to National Academy. just stand at the bottom of the hill and yell at Elle when she skis by.
Oh my God, that is so cool.
Oh man.
So you've spoken a little bit about, kind of J Peak and wow, that was amazing, but hadn't been out west. Like, what were the dreams you had as you grew up at Tussey? Like, were you dreaming to go ski Vermont and go to J, or were you thinking about out west? Kind of what were the bigger mountains you wanted to go to, and like when did you start dreaming of like CERT? And was there even national team in the dreams, or what? As you went through that process?
I didn't really think about going out west until I think high school. That's when like some of the other kids in my school, like they were going out west for spring break and things like that. And we were going to West Virginia. Like that was the cool thing for us. We're lifetime like industry family. Like we didn't have a ton of money growing up. So for us, like going to, Gore, that was like one of the bigger spring break trips, going to Timberline and Canaan. That was a really fun one. We went to the Berkshires one year. So, and I didn't care because I was with my parents and my family, and then another family that we would always take spring break trips with. They had kids that were similar to like my age and my brother's age, and their parents had worked in the ski industry and taught at Tussey and made snow there. So that was really fun. Like I never felt like I missed out on anything. Like I had the best childhood through and through. Like I'll say that a million times over, but I didn't realize that like out west was like a cool thing until like junior year of high school, I think. When people are like, oh, you're going to snowshoe? You're going to West Virginia? I was like, yeah. They're like, I'm going to Utah. And I was like, oh, gotcha. Cool. So I never felt like I missed out. It was cool going to Women's Summit because when I finally did go take a trip out west, I think I was like 19. I was in college. And the first place that I went to was Solitude, Alta, Bright, and Snowbird. So it was really cool. I haven't skied there since. So going to the Women's Summit was really cool to be back there and remembering like certain trail maps or runs. Mm-hmm. So it was pretty fun. But yeah, I never felt like I missed out. I started teaching when I was 14, and then I got certified when I was 16 for my level 1. My sister and I, we got our level 1s together. We were in the same group. We went to Denton Hill. RIP Denton Hill. Hopefully someday they'll get revived, but who knows? So it's a closed ski area in I guess, central Pennsylvania. So we printed out some directions on MapQuest, took the old family van to Coudersport, Pennsylvania, and we did our level 1 with Vic Antonelli. And oh my gosh, I just thought he was the coolest guy. He reminded me a lot of my dad. He had like this great kind of, the pointy hat with like a tassel. He had like a silver hoop earring. He was such a pro. And that was the first time I realized this is, you can be a pro at this. He had a Listerine breath spray he would use. So he didn't even have bad breath. Like he thought of everything. He was so cool. It just shows you like how important our level 1s are, because you can really inspire someone to stay in it if they have a great level 1 experience. And we did. I remember it was me and my sister, and then everybody else who was at that level 1 was a Denton Hill ski instructor. And Vic saw that. And at one point, he grabbed me and my sister, held us in the back, sent the rest of the Denton Hill crew. And he's like, would you guys like to do some synchronized skiing? And I was like, yeah, I would love to. And he just took the time to like make us feel special and included, even though we were not like everybody else from Denton. We were definitely the outliers. And, I still have a picture of me and my sister. Jim Polachek, who worked at Tussey for a really long time, he was there giving a CS1, and Jim took a really nice picture of my sister and I at the base area, standing next to each other with our level 1 fins on. And it's really cool. Mm-hmm.
And that's what I wanted to ask you next, which Victor's got to be on that list of inspiring you. Excuse me. And, what are some of you've mentioned some already, that Lipton was around when you were in high school and you like to tease him on that one.
Oh no, I was a kid. I was a kid.
You were even younger. So that's how old he's getting now. My God. And, but
probably,
Kim Sieverts was around. What's that, Angelo?
I said, I imagine Eric's probably starting to get like AARP mailings and whatnot.
He should be. He's getting close. He's got to be getting it. If not, we got to make sure he gets that.
He's still 10 years in my rearview mirror.
but because you mentioned some of those folks, I know Kim had to be in there, but I'm thinking more like when you were getting towards your level 3, what was it? When did it creep into the mind that I think I might want to go all the way to the national team? I want to put that goal on there. And was there a couple people on that road after you got the level 3 that you were like, they really helped you along, inspired you, like, this is worth it?
Yeah. Kim is like family. Like, she's just a part of me growing up, and she's always been, I didn't know how awesome she was as a kid. I knew she was an awesome person and knew so much and called everybody a dirtbag, and I thought she was cool. Oh man, I always thought she was cool, but I had no idea like who I'm in the presence of at the time. The first time I found out about the team and it sparked my interest, I think I might have been 15. And Eric had just made the national team. He came back to do a clinic at Tussey. I believe it was a 2-day clinic. And I didn't know. I mean, people told me about the team and why everybody was so excited to have Eric make it and then just come back and visit. And I remember some of the feedback he gave me, actually, which was really cool. I remember that all the more seasoned instructors that have been there for a while, they brought all their old like Tussey uniforms. So there's just like, I don't know why. I don't know if like who put that idea together, but everybody's skiing around in like vintage Tussey Mountain uniforms. Everyone's really happy to have Eric there. The first day, this is unheard of. It snowed 1.5 feet, which never happens. I don't think it's happened like since I was 15. So no matter what, the stoke was high, and it was wet, heavy Pennsylvania snow, but like we didn't care. And the next day it groomed in super well, and the skiing was awesome. And I remember skiing a ton of moguls, And everybody was just, the stoke was so high. Everybody was so excited to have Eric and for Eric. And I remember that feeling, and I was like, I want to do that. I want to inspire that and invoke that in people someday, just by like him coming back for a visit. So I remember, him skiing exceptionally well, which was obviously very inspiring. I remember he gave me some feedback about absorption and where to put my hands. So there's like drill with a ski pole under your arms that I still do all the time to people. Did it at Women's Summit. Like I remember it. Like it was a really impactful thing for me. And I just remember feeling like I want to have that impact someday. And there's times where I didn't know if I was going to make the team or be a teammate. And I kind of wavered like throughout my years, like, am I the right person to do that job? Not about like, do I want it? Of course I want it. Like I want to keep striving and I want to be one of the best at my craft, but like, am I the right person to do that for the country, to help, and right now help unite different processes and different regions? Like, am I that person? So there's times where it maybe wasn't as much of my goal as it was when I was 15. And then it was more than when I was 15, when I learned about it more, when I was educated, when I understood the impact and like why he could have that impact on the ski school. And, it was kind of always a goal in and out of the last 15 years of my life. Yeah.
And Angelo and I've talked in the past, haven't we, Angelo, about, how much do our great ski teachers and just great athletes think about, like, I'm not sure I have it. What do I have to do to have it? It's like, it's not just like, oh, I'm great, go do it. Like, do you have those, like, when you get ready for the season, you're like, okay, I've got to work on this because I'm not sure I'm doing well here. Do you have that little person in your mind sometimes going, I can't take this for granted. I've got to go work on this.
I think more so like gearing up to trying out for the team, I realized I knew what I needed to work on. And this was just the realization I had with myself that, I was happy with my skiing. I was pretty content with it at the time. And you can really impress people with your skiing, but if you're a great coach, if you're really good with people, you can have a much broader impact. So I really kind of the last couple of years honed in on my teaching skills and my people skills, and really figuring out the way I can have the biggest impact on the people I ski with, and really like look for that one little piece of individual feedback I can give someone on a chairlift at the bottom of the run and just really help them dial in exactly what we're working on as a group, and giving that individual time to people, and like Eric did with me, and have that be a memorable thing. So that's something that I've worked on pretty hard in the past couple of years. This year, I'm just trying to stay afloat.
It's all you can do.
It's been go. So, yeah.
So we were chatting a little bit, I had asked a little bit about, did you question yourself at any time? I know I do. Anytime I stand next to Michael Rogan, I'm going, okay, don't say anything stupid. Hopefully I've read the manual lately. So, but because Coach will call me on it. He listens to every single podcast. He has these memorized way more than you and I, Angelo.
Yeah, and he will call you out.
Yes, he will call me out. But there must be sometimes that when you're sitting in a group now that's amazing. Like I've watched those make it, like Troy through his first term and all the gang that make it. It's amazing how much you grow hanging with that crew. So when you get to sit with that crew at training and stuff, as you're coming into it, there are times like, oh my God, I got to get more up to speed on this. Because I think people are so afraid of thinking they have to know everything. And you can't know everything.
You can't know everything. And I think you're really limiting yourself and the people in the group when you don't, see someone that knows a lot and is doing something really well, and you don't ask for their input, or say like, hey, you're really great at this. Can you show us like, how or tell us what you're thinking of when you're working on that, I think you really limit yourself by feeling or pretending like you know everything, or being scared to open the floor. I've seen this. People are scared to open the floor a little bit and lose that control a little bit of the clinic because they might not be prepared for where they think it's going to go. But oftentimes that's where the most magic happens, when it becomes more real and when you let go just a little bit. So, yeah. And it's scary for sure. Like at some point you're going to feel like this could go horribly wrong or it could go incredibly well. And you have to kind of have the confidence in yourself to let that happen and learn from it if it doesn't go well. And that's okay. And you'll learn how to grab the reins and steer something back around, or use it as an example of this is what happened and this is the, result, this is the impact, and let's move on with it. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, he's muted.
Doesn't say.
So you can just own it and just say, wow, hey, be honest. That didn't go to a good place. Let's start over. Do this instead.
I had that happen to me. Okay. I had that happen this year. I was doing a clinic in Michigan and it was great snow in the morning. It was light. It was that lake effect, awesome Midwest snow. And then I wanted to give a couple people some more individual feedback. So I stood and everybody kept cycling. And as soon as that happened, it started raining, but it was a really fine, like mist rain. I kind of didn't really feel it. And then all of a sudden everybody's getting way worse. And I was like, oh no. I was like, what's happening? And I wasn't on snow sliding to feel the change with the group to say, this happened. Let's pivot or let's adapt. Instead, I wasn't there to guide that. And everybody kept trying to make the same turn happen on really nice, light, fluffy snow. And I said that to the group. I was like, hey, I was standing. I was talking to you guys. I didn't feel the snow. I wasn't there to prompt a change. And that's on me. I told them that right at the top of the hill, because if I can't own it, they're not going to feel like they can own it. And we all make mistakes. We all miss a cue, miss a thing here and there. And it's just being human.
Angelo, doesn't that score really well when that happens at an assessment, what she just talked about? If the coach, the person teaching it notices it themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. I watched a guy last year in a level 2 exam listen to a comment from one of the other participants about, whatever it was, that reminded me of this drill or something. And the guy totally was like, he's like, I wasn't planning on doing this. I hadn't even thought of that, but why don't we try it and just see what happens? Right in the middle of his exam. And I'm like, your stock went up. It was just real. Like, he totally adapted to the people in front of him. And he gave up on his own ego to just like, yeah, that's a really good point. Let's try it. And it was beautiful, and yeah, I mean, that's the way that is written. I know it's really super hard. Like Ellie, you said, it's really hard to give up control. And that's what you're doing. And on top of that, in your exam, it's a high risk move, but it was a good move to make. And it served him well score wise too, because it was real. That's the beauty of how those performance guides and the assessment forms are written. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to adapt to the people in front of you. It's exactly what he did. I didn't at that point, honestly, unless he said something really off the reservation, which I knew he wasn't going to. I didn't care how successful it was after that. It was about the scoring the teach, and the teach was about adapting to those people. It's exactly what he did. It was a total win, Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah. Hey, cool. Allie, you mentioned Kim Sievers a couple of times, and Kim was really influential in my early development too, because she was Alpine dev teamer. She was graduate student at Penn State. We're like 2 hours south of Penn State. So we would hire her as we were working on level 2 and 3, and she was on dev team working toward ETS, and she would come down after class, drive down 2 hours, a lot of time in the rain or the fog or whatever, and do a 2-hour clinic with a couple of us and then drive back to school. And, but I'm not quite sure that a lot of our members really know who Kim is. And I wondered if you wouldn't mind just giving a little, your your vantage point of Kim Sievers, because you have totally on top of my interactions with her as just like her student, and then eventually semi-colleague, but I wouldn't even go that far. But like your vantage point includes that stuff, but just so much more. I just wonder if you'd talk about Kim for a minute so people realize who she is and what she's done.
Yeah. The most time I spent with Kim was as a child, but she was working at a private all girls school, and that's why she lived in that area and going to Penn State. So she has this amazing career of like being a headmaster at a private academy, of being the adaptive team head coach, of running the adaptive center at Wyndham. She's worked in a lot of places across the East Coast. And I remember in one of your earlier podcasts about you bringing Kim down and bringing her to Seven Springs to coach you guys. And I think it just really shows like how strong she was even before she had her role on the team. Or she was also a Paralympic coach. She went to Sochi with an athlete named Stacy. And Kim she's strong. Like, she got really into powerlifting, and I think Kim can just power through anything that she wants to do. And I think that people saw that she was strong even before she had some of her accolades that she did. And she was the executive director of the East, I believe, too, for PSIA. And I know Kim as, like I said before, someone that was very assertive and very, whether she was or not, she came across as like very assertive and very strong. And the reputation of Tussey Mountain when Kim was the director, and this is all things that I barely remember as a kid or what people would tell me, is that if somebody is going to their associate cert and they're from Tussey Mountain, they're going to pass, because Kim wouldn't let you go unless she knew you're going to be successful. Like, she ran a tight ship. That's for sure. But she had a lot of fun too. And like, I think it's that, do you want to be like feared or respected? There's always that thing. And I think Kim was respected, but I think people were afraid to let her down. And I think that's a pretty powerful thing, to have so much respect from others. That, I mean, people talk about her at Tussey to this day, and they always will. And that's something to really look up to. I wish she was around more. I wish she was still working in the industry as much, but I totally understand if you want to be retired and be in Florida, Kim. I hear it.
We want her back, though. She's gonna come visit more.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, she gave me my full-time contract. Yeah, she was the boss. She was the director of education programs here in the East when I finally made it. And yeah, she let me go out there full time. And yeah, you did not want to let Kim down. Absolutely not, man. She is well respected and was then. But yeah, don't let Kim down. Oh, so
not a good Kim story, Angelo. I want to hear one.
I have one, but
okay. I Kim was just thinking.
Go ahead.
In 1999, I did the skiing portion of my level 3 exam at Hunter Mountain. That's when the skiing was 2 days, and then you had to wait 3 weeks to go for the teaching, and that was 3-day exam. So I went to Hunter and I did Wyndham, it was Hunter. Did my skiing, and I knew Kim obviously because she had gotten me like trained up to that point, and she was doing a 2-day clinic the 2 days after my skiing exam. So it's a pretty far drive. And I just decided, since I was in the area, I would sign up for both of them. And the session was called Teaching Women. And it was great, a group of 10 or whatever. And we're tooling around the mountain doing stuff. And somebody brought up Q angle. And I remember, like, because she's so like confident, matter of fact. And she's like, look, it's, there are men who've got that crazy Q angle too. And the bottom line you need to know about it is just not an excuse. That's like, Okay. She's like, you just got to ski good. It's not an excuse. It's just something to be aware of, and everybody was like, kind of like, all right, right on. Yeah. And just that high standard. And she had the command of the group that it was like, it wasn't about pushback. It was just about like, look, yeah, these are things that exist that we need to know about as pros. And if you're dealing with it and it's causing you a problem, then like get to the gym and work it out. Like that was her mentality. And it landed pretty hardcore on everybody. Like, yeah, all right, good. High standards. That's just a little story. I also remember one, and I have seen two people do this. Terry Barber was the other one, and that was in an ETS tryout. It was so foggy. We were or maybe it was a dev team tryout. It was so foggy, and Terry was scoring with murmur, and we were in this group, and the activity we were supposed to do was wedge Christie's, and it's like 8 inches of slop and super foggy. Like you could maybe see 10 feet in front of you, and Terry's like, well, we're going to do wedge Christie. And somebody in the group's like, well, Terry, how are you going to see us? And he kind of leans back and he's like, I'll just listen. And it was fun. But Kim pulled that on us at Seven Springs. I remember one night she came down, we were skiing bumps on Tyrol, which used to be the bump hill very often. And it was super foggy. And she's like, well, I'll go down. You guys come at me. And one of the other folks is like, well, how are you going to see us? And she's like, oh, believe me, I'll be able to hear how well you're skiing. At
that moment, you're like, "Oh man!" Like I didn't even know that was an option.
So it was pretty cool. I'll never forget that.
Wow,
that's awesome.
So there's some cool stories from our Mount Hood race camp. But Kim won't let me tell them all. I'm too scared of her to tell all of them on here. So you'll have to ask her about some of them. But you can definitely ask her about the one. There was the water coming off the hill, and behind some of the chalets we were staying in, it was like a little waterfall. And so she bet everybody that she could stay under the water. I mean, this water is freezing cold coming off the glaciers up there and the snowfields. And she's like, oh, I can stay under there the longest. So the idiots went out there and she tried it too. She did not win, I can tell you that. Some dude from Hunter, Vladi, who had driven all the way out there and then had no gas money to get back, actually stayed under there. We had to pull him out from under there. We thought he was going to go hypothermic under there. But yeah, she tried to get under that water and be like a polar bear, and it didn't work out for her. She lost the bet. But there's some other stories. You got to ask Kim, though, because she'll have to tell you. Ask her about the Mount Hood race camp, because she got all of us to go out there. She was going out there. This is back in probably early 2000s, and she was going out for her own skiing, and she got a bunch of us to go to Dave Gregory's peak performance camps. And we probably had, over the 6, 7, 8 years there, probably close to 20 staff members go out. When did she get out there? Ed staff members, examiners. And all the kids would ask, why are you old people here? And we were a lot younger then, but now if I want to be like, we're really old for those kids. But yeah, it's crazy.
That's a funny vibe, funny scene out there. All right, I've got one Kim one. I was at Seven Springs. She was doing a PSIA event. I was on the chairlift with my dad, and my pop, I call my dad Pop. He really only skied like 3 or 4 times a year outside of like spring break trip. So we must have like been on spring break or just a day trip down to Seven Springs. And Kim was at Window at the time. I hadn't seen her in a few years. And my pop's like, we're just loaded. We're like in between like the load and the first tower. He's like, oh, there's Kim. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's Kim. And he just yelled off the chairlift, hey, Sievers, you suck. And her head just wham. And then she saw who it was. And she just shook her head. And I was like, you just said that to Kim. Just shows how close they were.
Oh, God, that's funny. Oh, so how does Ellie... I think a lot of people want to know this, and I think it'll help some people, especially coming up through. They're looking to make a career out of it. There's a longer season out west than the east, and it's getting shorter in the east. But how did you go? I mean, I've heard some of it, and I know I don't have it right because you've been at Stevens Pass. You were at Beaver Creek for a while, I think. But how did you get from Tussey? Like, how soon after you had your level 3, and how did the move go from, I'm going from the east to the west?
So the first time I ever worked out west, you probably don't know this. I was working at the Mount Snow Training Center as well as teaching ski lessons at Mount Snow. So this is my first full-time season in the industry. And there was an instructor named Paul Miles. He was a coach at the Freestyle Center, and he coached mostly the mogul kids and the aerials. And we're at, what's that barn? The bar at the bottom of Mount Sullivan. You know what I'm talking about.
I do know what you're talking about. All I can think was Wobbly Barn. That's Killington. What is the name of the barn over there? I can't remember it.
The silo.
I think, that's the one like down in town.
Yeah, but there's one right there you're talking about down the base, just below the old lodge.
Yeah, it's red. It's, I don't know what it's called. Anyway, we're in there and it's like 2 a.m. I don't know. I was like 21 back then. And Paul was like, what are you doing? Like, our season's about to end. Because it was 15-16 season, and it was probably one of the worst seasons I can remember. Now there's a few in the last couple of years that can rival it for sure, but it was a terrible year. And if it wasn't 65 degrees, it was like minus 20. And if it wasn't doing that, it was raining. So we had no snow. Like, they did not open, like 50% of the runs were open that year. And I just really never felt like I got enough out of that year. And he was saying that his son, lives in Mammoth, and I think Doug Daniels, actually, I was training with Dougie, working at Mount Snow. He said there's an opportunity to go to Mammoth if you want to extend your season. They're kind of recruiting. They're looking to hire. So I was talking to Paul about it, and he's like, "Oh, you can go. Just stay with my son." And I was like, "Okay, yeah." He's like, "Oh, yeah, I'll just call him right now." So he calls him at 11 o'clock over there. He answers the phone. And he's like, yeah, she can come crash with us. We're about to go on this big trip to Canada anyway. His son, Nick, is a freestyle skier. So I was staying and living at, it's called Montage Inc. It's like level 1 productions. A lot of the level 1 athletes live there. So he was like, yeah, you can go stay at my son's house. No biggie. So I booked this flight at like 2 a.m. to come from Albany to Mammoth or to Reno. And then I took a bus. And I woke up the next day and I was like, what did I do? I was like, oh man. But I went and that was my first time working out west, was at Mammoth. And I did like April, I think, end of March all the way through May out there. And then free skied a bunch and taught a few lessons. And that was my first time working out west. The terrain there is great. I really liked Mammoth. I liked the town. It was really fun staying at that house. Every night we would go hot springing after work. Yeah. And they all called it tubbing. It was tubbing. We tubbed like 6 days a week at least. Because everything there is so expensive. So we would just drive out and go find a hot spring and just stay in a bunch of locals. So they knew where everything was. It was really fun. And I met Finley. Actually, the first day I skied at Mammoth, like Doug Daniels had set it all up. And so I text Finley and we meet up and we take a few runs and he goes, I've got a meeting at noon, but look, there's a really famous ski couple right here. It's the Plakes. And I was like, oh, cool. So he brings me over. He's like, Glenn, Kim, this is Ellie. I want to introduce you. And he's like, Glenn's like, I know Ellie. It's Ellie from Tussey. And I was like, yes, it is. Yes, I am. So Glenn and Kim stopped at Tussey Mountain once on their down home ski tour, which they're doing right now. And I remember it was a Tuesday. I was in like 7th grade and I got to ski with them. And I've just like kind of kept in touch with them throughout the years. And because my parents worked at Tussey and like they call me Ellie from Tussey. And it was really funny. And Finley was like, who am I skiing with? Like, how do you know them? And I ski with them the rest of the day. And Kim and I have the same size boots. So I was, but yeah, I realized I didn't want to work there, but I knew I wanted to then work out west. And I think Doug had some connections at Beaver Creek. So that's where I ended up the following year. Mm-hmm. He pretty much kicked me out. I had a great time working at Mount Snow. I loved it, but he was like, if you're going to do this, you're going to make a career. He's like, go somewhere else, like get some experience, go work. All right.
Yeah. Killer. That's awesome. Ellie from Tussey. I know her. Glenn.
Bob Shostak also calls me that.
Yeah.
Ellie from Tussey. I remember my level 2. I passed my level 2 at Bristol, I think.
Yeah.
Is that the one near Rochester?
Yeah, I think. Yeah.
At Bristol. And then I was working at Whiteface at the time. And they're like, Ellie from Whiteface. And like I walk up and she's like, it's Ellie from Tussey. And like screams over the ground. So yeah, Ellie from Tussey. I'm happy with it.
And you took your level 3 at Cannon, right? Did you do both parts there at Cannon?
I did the ski part at Cannon. And that's where I met you, Dave.
I know, and I was informed of that when we, as I thought, met at Loveland this fall, and you were with Ellen, and I'm like, hey, it's great to finally meet you, and we got to have you in the podcast. And you're like, well, we've already met, and I'm like, oh boy, stick my foot in it. Where have we met?
You had no idea. I like totally blindsided you. You're like, what?
Yeah. I got Ellen sitting next to me, and then you're blindside me like, oh my God, what did I do?
Pulling through the lift line, and I'm just dropping bombs. You're like, that's the moment where you're like, oh no, I'm supposed to remember you. You're not supposed to remember me. I just had you for an assessment, and it was my 3 ski. I took it at Cannon. You and then Augie was understudying you, I believe, and I was like, oh, I'm so excited. Gonna take it at Cannon. It's like 45 and sunny every day. And then we roll up to the assessment and it like freezes over, like rock solid. And there was grapple just falling from the sky all day. I remember that some of the people in my group couldn't see when you guys were waving your pole to go. So you guys were getting mad. So I was like, I'll go. I have really good eyesight. So I was like, I'll go last every time and like send the group. So we didn't make the assessors really angry.
Oh,
and you and Augie were so fun. I remember you guys had such a great chemistry and like camaraderie that it made us all feel really, really settled. And I hate jokes. Sorry, I know some ski instructors love jokes, but you and Augie had this joke. And it's kind of like a riddle, I guess. And I stole it from you guys and I use it all the time. And it was when birds fly in a V, do you know one flies longer than the other? What's the answer?
Because there's more birds on that side.
Exactly. I use it all the time. That's my only joke. Like,
I stole that from Dave Gregory and Sean Smith.
Now we know the truth.
Yeah, it was probably right after we've been going to the camps, the race camps with Kim, and Dave Gregory and Sean Smith was there, and they'd always, to get your ticket in the morning, we'd have to answer something. And they're like, yeah, so, when the geese are flying north and they got the V, why is one side longer than the other? And I did not, when they asked me, come up with the right answer. It's simple. There's more birds on that side.
I was in the ornithology club in school. Like I studied birds. I took ornithology in school as well. So people are always like, for me, waiting for this like really scientific bird answer. And I just give them this snide little remark. And they're like, come on, Ellie. Everyone's always mad.
Oh, that is so awesome. But it is, you were talking about just certification, the process and people just being supportive of others. And it's like the exam is one of the hard ones, like to keep it light. So I look back, Angelo, and go, I hope I'm better at it now than then, but I hope I wasn't terrible then. Cause it's like great. You were talking about like cause you talk about like Vic, doing the level 1. It's so important. Those experiences at all of them, even the level 2 and 3, that is so key as people are moving through. And that's kind of my question. Like, did you have any bumps in the road, or has Ellie gone clean slate to the team?
No, I didn't. I think I had a bump in the road, and it was in level 3. I do feel really spoiled. Like I guess I shouldn't feel spoiled, but I had great assessors like coming up through. And then I had one experience, and I originally took the ski at Cannon and the teach part at Hunter. And I'm not a great test taker. not the most naturally confident. It's something I've really had to work at. So for me, going to an assessment is always pretty stressful. And I remember being like feeling really ready. And I can't remember like the order of things, but there's 2 teach portions. There was like a children's, and then I think they had it like at the time creative teach. And then the second day was MA. And I think in the morning I was a little nervous, and I had an assessor, and he did this thing and basically we started inside and took everybody in our group like to a hallway and was like, everybody like stop breathing and get really tense. And I want to see the veins pop out of your neck. And I know it sounds bizarre. And I'm like, okay. So like everybody, I'm like, I don't want to do this. Like, I feel okay. I feel ready. So we all do it because he's doing it. And then I felt so tense, and it really kind of threw me off. And I remember like wanting to ride the chairlift by myself for that teach. And that wasn't an option. And there was an examiner and an understudy, and I had someone on either side of me. And I just felt like what I needed, I couldn't get in that moment. And it wasn't because I wasn't ready. It's because I wasn't confident enough to do what I set out to do. And they wanted to know like what my plan was ahead of time. And I just was like, I can't even think. Like, I just froze. And it was just an interesting dynamic I never had been in that dynamic before, with these 2 guys on either side of me. And I just kind of froze up, and I knew exactly what I wanted to do, but I got so tense and I got nervous and I kind of froze. So I wasn't successful with that part. But I knew I could still be successful with some other parts of the assessment. And one of my coaches I was working with, he texted me at lunch and he was like, how'd it go? And I was like, didn't go well. I was like, I don't think I was successful, but I think I can get it back together. And I did. And I passed. The second part was I think the children's teach. And then the next day I kind of blew the MA out of the water. And I remember getting a few 6s and really changing the people in the group skiing. And like, I did a really great job, and I was really happy with how I bounced back, like in that moment. But I learned a lot about what I need to do to be successful, and that I was ready and prepared and confident. And I just couldn't let any outside kind of interference come in and rattle me. So it made me kind of have to pony up a little bit. And I knew what I wanted to do, and I just didn't do it. And I got intimidated is really what it was. And I learned from it. And then as a little thing for myself, I went back 2 weeks later and took the creative teach at Whiteface. And I did exactly the same. I pulled like the same scenario. I did exactly the teach that I wanted to do the first time, and I got great scores.
Sweet.
So I knew I had the skills, but I knew I needed to be more confident, and I needed to stick to the plan that like I knew I wanted to do, and not get rattled with that. And I learned from it, and I grew from it, and I'm glad it happened there, and could have happened somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah. Angelo tells us we learn from everything if we're smart enough.
If we're smart enough. Yeah. If I were smarter, I would know a whole lot more stuff right now.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that's a big moment. It sounds like you figured out a lot about yourself that moment. And a lot of times when we are training and trying to develop and get better at the job and whatnot, the craft, it's pretty tedious and slow and day in, day out in the locker room and it's rainy or whatever. But do you have a couple of those moments that stand out to you, like that one that were big leaps forward, and it's like, oh, like, you know, and just kind of teaches us something about the sport or yourself that makes you get better real fast?
Mine was kind of just such a slow trickle, I feel like, because it was kind of always this steady journey in my life. Like I said, it was like to making the team and to starting teaching. It was 15 years. And for such like, I was pretty young at the time. And so I never really had like an aha moment until I was 25. Because I'd been working and training. I trained almost every day. And whether that was like going and skiing with friends and working on something or taking a clinic, like I just always wanted to be better and get better and have fun. And I felt like the more I learned, the more fun it was, the more options I had. So I don't think I really had an aha moment until I was 25 years old. I was working at, maybe I was younger, I was 23 or 25. I was working at Beaver Creek and I was skiing with Ellen post-Foster. And she brought up something about my stance and that I was a bit hinged at the hips and at the waist because of a pelvic tilt issue. And I was like, I don't even know what that is. And she's like, how have you made it this far? And nobody's taught you about this. And I was like, I'm not sure, but wow, it wasn't something I could change overnight. Because of the way that my body, I was standing on my skis, I was really utilizing muscles that shouldn't be holding me up or propping me up or keeping my core tight. I really had to change how I stood, how my skeletal system aligned, and the muscles that needed to be strong to help like support that. And I recognized that it was something that I changed outside of skiing and I brought into my skiing. So I went home that summer. At the time I was working in Colorado, and then I was a foreman and then managing a pretty large local landscaping company. So I was back home in State College for the summer. And Jim Polinchek at the time, he had recently opened his gym in Lamont, Pennsylvania. And I went to Jim and I said, I learned this from Ellen. Can you help me figure out some drills and activities to make myself stronger so that I can support this position that I want to ski in? And he said, yeah, absolutely. So I worked with Jim a few times that summer, and we kind of just would do check-ins, and he would give me some new exercises. And a lot of it was like glute strength. And then just the more open position of my pelvic bone allowed my core to engage more. So that kind of almost just fell into place. And that really was single-handedly like the one thing that really changed my skiing. And I'm just really grateful that I had the time with her and that she took the time to explain it to me. And it was like a 6-month journey. I worked on it all summer, and it's kind of just incorporated in like every facet of my life now. How I sit, not how I stand, how I sit, how I drive, how I think about like positioning my body. And I know that is like the one thing that made my skiing go from, well, she's a pretty good skier, to like people noticing my skiing and noticing how I can manipulate the ski in the snow. Yeah, it's really cool.
So Ellen post-Foster's name came up again, Angelo. And I want to ask us, yeah, and Angelo and I talk about this, and I do. I know for me, when Angelo and I started this podcast, I didn't anticipate personally, Angelo can speak for himself, that Ellen would listen and Michael. And I'm going to go down this road because I'm jealous. I wish I had more access to Ellen as you do, which is awesome. I've read her books, and as I was coming up through, and she sends us emails on some of the podcasts to chat with Angelo and I about what was discussed. And the information we get in that's just awesome. Just the back and forth, just the emails, chatting with Ellen, and her thoughts. And I just want your thoughts. Like, I mean, what an amazing person to be able to have a relationship with, to have that kind of moment. But that wasn't the only one. I mean, you were out west when I finally met Ellen this past fall. So, I mean, can you tell us a little bit just about that relationship you have and what it's like?
Yeah. So I met Ellen my first season at Beaver Creek. So yeah, that was 16, 17 season, I believe. And at first, like our relationship has traveled a lot. It's gone from like coach to mentor to like dear friend. I went to Beaver Creek and I knew I was going to have a hard time getting bookings, I thought. So I joined the women's synchronized skiing team at Beaver Creek purely for the referrals, because I knew that they always needed like a backup in case you're double booked. So I was like, young female instructors, I can like fill my schedule with this. And it worked. So that was great. But I had a ton of fun. I didn't realize I was going to enjoy it so much. And we had 2 coaches, and one was Jamie Hawkins, who's now the director of skier services at Beaver Creek. At the time, he was managing, I think, the adult ski school. And the other one was Ellen Post-Foster. And I didn't even know she was going to be the coach when I signed up. And it was so cool. I got to ski with Ellen twice a week, and we would load the chair at 7 a.m. and ski a run at 7 and a run at 8. So I originally really just got to know her as my coach those first couple months. The moment that I knew Ellen and I were going to get along well, and the coaching was great. She just had done a lot of synchronized skiing. I mean, she was world champion freestyle skier, so she can coach any aspect of skiing. And it was great to have her on the hill. And the moment that really kind of broke through for us, I was in one of her clinics later in the season. And I've been trying to get in one of her clinics all year, and they're always full. So she lays out our day like beautifully. And at the top of the run, somebody always inevitably goes, "Oh, I had this random question about turn radius of skis." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, we're just trying to do our warm up." Like, oh man. And Ellen like so eloquently goes, "Let's talk on the chair." And I was like, oh, thank goodness. Well, somehow I end up on this chair ride. I didn't mean to be. And Ellen doesn't remember this, but she's in the middle. There's another person on the far end. I'm on the other far end, and there's a 4th person between us. And they're talking about the difference of a 12 to 13 meter turning radius of their ski and what they need to do for their level 2. And I'm sitting over here like, doesn't even matter. And I'm just sitting on the edge, like, come on. So they're talking. It's halfway up the chair. The other instructor's chiming in. And finally, I just stick my head over the side. And I was like, "Hey, you want to know the turning radius of my ski?" And they go, "Yeah." And I'm going to use a choice letter word, but I think it's okay. I was like, "I don't fucking know. I just turn them." I didn't know. I had no idea what my turn radius was. It was a Nordica Spitfire 74. Yeah. I think it's actually a 14 meter. I had no clue. Couldn't tell you. And then I just shrunk. I shrunk in my seat, and I was like, "Oh no, she's gonna hate me." I just swore in front of Ellen Post-Foster. First thing I said in this clinic, "Get off the chairlift." And she skis up to me, and she just goes, "I really like your attitude," and just skis away. And I was like, "She likes me. I've done it. Oh my God." I was like, I can't believe it. I didn't mess it up. And the next year at Beaver Creek, or the year after, I can't remember, Ellen, she took the job as the assistant training manager. So she was at Beaver Creek like 5-6 days a week. And, between like synchro skiing and clinicking and just talking to her, we just became really good friends. I would pretty much stop in her office every day after skiing, and we would walk to her car or walk to the bus. Then the next year she had a parking pass. So we would walk to her car. She would drive me to the employee lot, or I would carpool to work sometimes, where she'd drive me to my house, which was kind of on the way to her house. And I pretty much ended every day that she was there talking to Ellen and like talking through what I saw, what I worked on, what I saw other people doing. And I learned so much. And we just developed this like really easy friendship. And then, she's been one of my dearest friends ever since 20, like 15, 16 or 16, 17. And,
Wow.
And her husband, Brad, and her whole family, her kids, they're a really wonderful family. And Brad is an amazing ski tuner and hooks it up, takes care of Ellen's skis, and occasionally he'll tune mine for me. I'm very, very lucky. They've even looked at my alignment in their kitchen. Like I have boots that are aligned by Ellen. I learned so much about boot fitting from her. And I am not someone that's lucky. I don't have great alignment. I really don't. I've got a pretty gnarly Q angle. Like I was can't tell you, I was so happy at tryouts that we didn't have to do any one-legged, one ski activities, because it doesn't look right when I do it, but I have to manipulate my body in really strange ways to get this like ski to snow performance that I want. And some people can't look past that. And Ellen really helped me hone in on like my knowledge of boots and how women's bodies interact with boots specifically. And I carry that with me to every clinic I go to. Like I've always got strips of duct tape or pieces of foam or little things in my bag. And if I hadn't had these boot struggles and then had someone like Ellen to help me learn about them and then go on the hill and watch me ski, I would know a portion of what I know now. And we like often book our boot fitting appointments together. So we'll go to the boot fitter and just watching like her boot fitter, Jeff, and her like and interact and when Greg Kaufman was at Vail, watching the couple of them just communicate. I learned how to communicate with my boot fitter. I learned like what they need in order to set me up to be successful. And I can't thank her enough. I really can't. She's been a huge inspiration and aspirational person and a big light in my life. And I'm very grateful for our friendship, and I'm grateful every day.
Yeah, she knows how to work hard. Ellen does. She's got a work ethic. So, and that's the thing. Like it's super hard to even get to the tryout. Never mind make the team. I mean, making the team is in any discipline is super amazing. I don't think people know, Angelo. I don't think people even have a clue if they haven't even tried what it takes to even get there. Never mind make the team. And that's what I want to ask you, and everybody kind of opens up in their own way to this question of when they make the team. When I ask it, it's like, I guarantee I can see this huge commitment. You talk about it that every day you were on the hill, you were working on something, even going skiing with friends, and there's sacrifices we make. It's not cheap, even just tryout year to get to the tryout and to get through the tryout and be there. And, what are some of the sacrifices? What are some of the things you had to do? You feel that, what does it take to make the team? Yeah.
Can I bump back even years earlier?
Yeah. Far as you want.
My first full-time season. I guess even further back, I called my pop one day, which is odd because I usually would call mom about this stuff. And I said to him, I was being, I don't know why I called him. I don't know where I was, but I said, I think I want to work full time in the ski industry next year. I was like, I know I just graduated college and I have this job offer to do some like water testing and work in a lab and do like tree work. And he was like, I was like, can I do this? Can I work full time in the industry? And he said, yeah. He's like, I did. And we never had the conversation again. That was it. He's like, well, I did. Your mom did. And it was over. And he gave me a piece of advice that I have not followed. He gave me a piece of advice and then told me one thing to expect. And he said that I had to, if I wanted to work full time in the ski industry, I had to marry rich and not work at a place that has night skiing. I'm single and I work at a place that has night skiing. So I called him like last year at Stevens Pass in the evening, and I was leaving the mountain and I realized it. And I was like, hey, I just want to let you know, I really let you down. And he kind of put his dad pants on. He's like, okay, tell me what happened. And I told him that. He busted out laughing so hard. Oh, it was great. And then the other thing that he told me before I worked that full-time season at Mount Snow, he said, work really hard this summer, because if you leave Mount Snow with $1,000 less than what you started with, that's considered a win. It only cost you $1,000 to work a full-time ski industry year. That's a win. I'm like, okay. So that gave me some good drive. I left Mount Snow with $1,000 more than what I started with because I taught ski lessons. I worked at the training center. I vacuumed the children's Discovery Center like 5 to 7 days a week. And I worked as a Bud Light girl, which I did not apply for. I got asked. I'm going to clarify.
You accepted, though.
I did. It's better than instructing. So I had to do it. Yeah, I was level 2. I came into my first full-time year as a level 2 instructor. And I went to Mount Snow. I kind of got recruited, I guess. I was at Mount Snow doing my Freestyle 1 assessment. And I had accidentally signed up for the snowboard Freestyle 1 because they labeled it like Freestyle 1 and then Alpine Freestyle 1 was under it. So I didn't scroll down far enough to sign up for the Alpine. I'm in college. I'm only in school 2 days a week. So I had to get to clear it with my professors to miss these days of classes because there was only a few days a semester of class. And they're like, it's for an educational opportunity. Absolutely. So I sign up, get the days off school, have a place to stay with friends that were working full time there. And so I go down for a call the day before. I get a call from the office. I was like, Ellie, we're so sorry you signed up for the wrong assessment. I was like, oh man. Okay. And I had friends that were going out for like ETS and other things that were happening. So I'm like, I've got the time off school, got a place to stay. I'm sure I can find a ticket. I'm going to go anyway. And I walk up to the table. My friend walks past the table and goes, your name tag's still there. And I was like, really? So I walk up to the table. Tommy Morsch was sitting there. And he goes, I go, hi. He goes, hi. And he's kind of looking at me funny because I just kind of paused. And I was like, that's my name tag. I'm Ellie, but I ski. And he's like, oh, that's you. And I was like, can I still do it? And he goes, let me ask. He walks over to Don Haringa, and who worked with my dad like 40 years ago at Greek Peak. And it's a pretty recognizable last name. And I could read their lips, and I saw Tommy pointing, and he goes, oh, it's for her. And he goes, yeah, just let her in. So I took my FS1 with all snowboarders, and I run out to my car, grab my park skis, grab my park poles, come back in, change, and I'm rushing. So the whole time I'm just trying to get there on time. I walk outside and I realize, oh crap, I'm the only skier. And I felt like a weight. I felt really nervous. And all of a sudden, Tommy in his national team uniform goes, I call Ellie. And I was like, oh, thank God. Awesome. So I had to relay all my teachers to snowboarding, and they had to relay all theirs to skiing. And out of that assessment, Brian Donovan was one of the other assessors. And Tommy and Brian must have talked about me at some point, because Brian came up to me at the end of the assessment and was like, you should really work at Mount Snow. And I was like, okay, sounds great. I'll be there. So then I called my pop and talked to him about it. And he said, we've got this great trainer. His name's Doug Daniels. I think he'd be a great person for you to work with. So long story short, I went to Mount Snow to train with Doug, and I trained with him a lot. And I knew if I was going to take the time off of work to go train, I needed to work a lot. So that's why I ended up working 4 jobs. So I could train with Doug like 6 hours a week. And it was really fun because I didn't know Doug and he didn't know me. But luckily we hit it off really well. But I would walk into his office and it would be pouring. And I'd be like, why are your boots not on? And he's like, it's raining. And I was like, but we're supposed to go skiing. He's like, it's raining. And I was like, I'll be back in 20 minutes. Have your boots on. Thanks. Bye. And I just like walk out. And he kind of told me at the end of the year that it was really great to have me like prompt, his love of skiing again, and in the rain and in the sleet and in the snow and in the fog, I was like, we're going out, we're going skiing. I'm like, I'm vacuuming the bathroom, or I'm vacuuming the children's center and cleaning the bathrooms so we can go train. So it's tough, but you can make it work. You really can. And I had so much fun. And I think I gained some respect from some of the managers and whatnot from showing them how hard I wanted it and how bad I wanted it. So my dad kind of like challenged me, basically. Didn't say the words, but to do it and to make it work. And I did. Yeah.
Yeah. We had our crew
showing the Vermonters a little bit of that Pennsylvania toughness.
Yeah. Well, Brian's a Pennsylvania guy too.
Yes, he is. He knows.
Yeah.
He knows.
Yeah. Well, and Angelo. I've heard Angelo say that before.
A lot of PA on these calls.
Yeah. Well, Angelo, that's kind of where I was going in this next. What I was going to say, there was when the results came out for the team, in the Alpine section, Troy Boy was there, and Pete Novum, first term, pretty exciting. We had Brian Smith get back on there, and so our Eastern crew, and then Ellie, you were announced, and like over the next few weeks, there was a vibe like you made it, and it was like another Eastern person. Yeah. Like I didn't know you very well, but the vibe back here was Ellie from down at Tussey, one of our PA crew, made the team, right, Angelo?
I wish I had taken a picture of your face, Ellie, when your name was called. It was.
I'm pretty sure I was probably like this.
It was just remarkable. She's like, "Is there another Ellie Matalavage in this room?"
People were texting me like after, "Why did it take you so long to get to the stage?" And I was like, I wasn't sure if they said my name.
Yeah. But there was tons. I mean, I heard it at a bunch, and it was on the text, and it was like, awesome. Ellie made it. She's one of our Eastern crew. She's from PA. I mean, it was a big buzz. Still a buzz. I actually wore to the announcement. My mom had these flannels made, and they all have there's 3 different colors, and they have the Tussey logo right here, and I wore it to the team announcement, just because I was like, I'm bringing Tussey here no matter what, and that was pretty cool. And later in the day, maybe the next day, that was on the Tussey Mountain Facebook page, was that I made the team in my Tussey flannel, and it felt like the right thing to do. It really did. Yeah. I was walking into I don't know if I think it was tryouts. Or the academy, because I was at the academy before that. This just, oh man, I don't even know if these guys remember, but I'm sure they do. I'm sure Mike does. We're walking in. I come out of the hotel, and Mike Hafer and Troy Walsh are walking together down towards the base area. And they're like, "Oh, Ellie, perfect. We were just talking about you. Now, when you make the team, are you going to let Rocky Mountain or Eastern claim you?" And I think Mike asked the question, and I just looked at Troy, and I was like, East Coast all the way. And he's like, "I knew it." It was just a joke. I was trying out still, but it was really cool to feel like I'm part of a few different regions. It's pretty cool. Yeah, absolutely. So what's it mean to be a team member for you? I mean, because they talk about trying to find their role in the team. I know Troy talked about that, and some of the other first term crew, what their role is, but where do you see yourself, and do you see yourself yet where your role is? I think I'm still figuring that out. I think one of the cool things is I know that, and I don't know if I realize this in myself, that I'm more as introverted as I am. I mean, spending 14 hours alone in a dump truck with no cell service should prompt that thought in you, but there's that. But I am a little bit more introverted at times, and than a lot of my teammates. And I know that personality wise, I can kind of balance things out in a room. And
I'm on a decent amount of calls and team meetings, and I don't talk a lot. I really don't. It's never been like my role or how I am, but there's something to be said. I'll say it, but I don't really care to hear the sound of my own voice. Being on this is a lot of talking for me. But I've always been a quieter person in the room. And I think I'm really happy that I'm on the team, and I am that way. And it shows people you don't have to be the biggest, loudest, tallest, most extroverted, outgoing person in the room to be seen or to make a difference. And that's something I'm really proud of, that I've kept a lot of who I am, and I've grown a lot, but I've kept who I am on this team. And I'm not, a lot of times I'll be on a call and I'll email in some comments after, but I just wanted to not interrupt things or let things happen or let things play out and see how that works. And I listen and I watch and I contribute, but in my own way. And I think that's something that a little bit more unique that I bring to the team with some of my teammates. And we need those more bigger personalities at times. We need a balance, and I'm glad I can bring that and show people that it's valuable as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I agree. I love what you're saying. I think education is biased toward extroverts, and I think there's an assumption that teachers need to be or should be extroverted. And I don't agree with that, because like your point earlier about how that hallway exercise impacted you as a candidate, extroverted teachers can shut introverts down, and it's not intentional. It's totally unintentional, but it happens. Like that happened to you. And we need to recognize that, as, and like Michael says, you can't have a team of left-handed pitchers,
right?
So you got to have a mix. That's what a team is. And we're better at talking about needs of learners than characteristics of teachers. And we say, everybody learns differently, but I still think teachers are biased toward the extroverted side. And I'd love to see that change. I love that you're saying it, because that's how things like that get changed. But as we talk about teaching, because another aspect of what we do that gets more shine than the others, I would say, is technical performance. Like, people are more likely to sign up for a technical performance event than they are an event about how to get better at teaching. So that's the question to you. Like, how do we make, or how do you make, or what are your thoughts about making people be more interested? And I'm not asking it well. Like, I don't want to make somebody be interested in something, but how do we attract more people to develop their teaching performance as well as their skiing or riding performance?
In a lot of clinics, I do, especially when I know the people in the clinics, it's easier. But like I lead a lot of clinics here a couple times a month at Lookout Pass on the Idaho-Montana border. And we've got this one great instructor, and he's Cert 2, and he's ready for his 3, but he just maybe doesn't know it. And I'm like, what do you want to work on today, Charlie? And he's like, I just want to work on my skiing. And every time he says that, but we'll have a clinic of a bunch of people, and I'll pull him aside and I'm like, what do you see? What do you think? What do we need to work on? Or I'll say like, hey, this is what I'm thinking. This is where my bias is, though. I think I should tackle it this way. What do you see? So I like to let people into my head a little bit. And so hopefully it can spark some interest, because like I said earlier, before I went for the team, I knew I wanted to work on my teaching, my people skills, because that's how you have the most impact. And I want people to see that they can have an impact on their coworkers, their ski school, even if they're not leading the clinic, and they can really prompt that thought. And oftentimes, especially like in a ski focused clinic, I'll take a chair or like take a moment if we're inside, and I'll explain to people like, this is what I saw. This is what I coached you. This is where I changed. And like, seeing some people just, that's not what they're there for, but seeing who gets interested and maybe like they've never thought of it that way. Or oftentimes people will come up and say, I've never like had a clinic run that way. It was so smooth and so like natural, and it like just the progression of things. They're like, what was your progression? And I was like, I didn't have one. And they're like, oh, you didn't plan this? And I was like, no. And just letting people in on that and be aware of it. And sometimes I'll start a clinic and I'll walk up and say, I have no plan. I have no agenda. I'm like, this is what I see, what you guys want to learn. And just the awareness of it, I think, sparks interest. And being open with people and then just sharing like what you see and what you think. And then also like making them feel valued, like seeing someone, like seeing Charlie and like, I want him to know his opinion. I want him to be interested. I want him to feel comfortable speaking up. So I really try to do that every clinic, even if it's a ski or tech or people skills focus.
Yeah. We give them a peek behind the curtain and throw because you're like a duck, right? You're cool on the surface and paddling like hell underneath. And it's good for people to realize that, you know, and you know, the danger is like, cause I've heard this complaint too. One danger is that I've heard, you know, accusations that, oh, it's just a ski around and, you know, it has this title, but that's not what we did. They just wanted to know what we wanted to work on. But so there's a balance. I get, you want to respect what the title is, what the content is, but you also need to respect how that group interacts with what that topic is. And I think those peeks behind the curtain are very important for that, you know. And I like, there are biases in everything. And, you know, we talk about, well, shit, I just forgot what I was going to say. Damn it. I'm going to have to edit this out. What the hell was I going to say? It was shit. Should I just leave this in? I should just leave this in.
Yeah, just leave it. It's chaos and company. You can't take it out.
Give them a peek. Let them know it's real.
Wait a minute.
It's chaos and company.
What was I doing? I moved my phone.
Biases.
Yeah. Shit, I don't know. It'll come back. Dave, ask a question, for Christ's sake.
All right. We got a couple. There's a couple we have to ask because it's you, Ellie. One of those is, what are some of the things you keep in mind when regarding connecting with people to establish trust? Because I know, just chatting with you here, and I've heard that. I know Angelo wanted us to ask that. You know, what are some of the things you keep in mind regarding how you keep trust with a group or with people?
I learned this, something that I was doing, and then learning that I can put into play more. Last year, I got tasked with doing a lot of instructor observations at Stevens Pass, which we're like now calling instructor connections if they do them at your home Vail resort. And they can often be tough because you're shadowing people who you've never met before, especially if you work at a really big ski school, snow sport school, excuse me. And this was kind of my foot in the door of like a mentoring program is how I thought of it, rather than just giving someone an observation. And I'm still struggling how to help with this, but you'll have people that you're really close with and you're really comfortable with and you have a friendship with outside of the ski school. And, then you go to observe their clinic and they just freeze up. They just clam up so hard. And, that's been hard because I don't want to watch people. I want to watch people at their best and I want to give them the most accurate feedback that I can. So while they're working, I'll try to grab a chair with them. So it's not just me staring at them. And, one thing that I learned, kind of grabbed the help of Linda Cowan, and she's a alumni PSIA, I guess, examiner in the Northwest. And I asked for her help with this. And she told me that people need to, when you're observing them, they need to see you as an equal. Like, it's not me watching you. I know more than you. It's like, and it's kind of meeting them where they are and making sure that they feel like you're not there to judge them harshly. You're not there to be critical, and trying to connect with people and making them feel like you're there to support them and to be helpful. Oftentimes, like the first, after I watched this video that Linda sent me, the first guy I shadowed, I was like, Brent, what do you do when you're not teaching skiing? Like, what's your normal regular job? And he's like, oh, I'm a driver for UPS. And I was like, I drive dump trucks. And he was like, immediately just settled. I was like, she gets me, because he's a great skier. But I could tell he didn't talk a lot during the day. I could tell he didn't have like a cadence of someone that was continuously speaking. And I could just tell from the way he addressed the group. And immediately, like, me recognizing that and then finding out what he does, and then him feeling comfortable, like I could relate to him. He immediately just relaxed a little bit. And when we were talking after, and the next time I shadowed him, he did so much better because he wasn't nervous, because I built that trust with him. But finding something that you have common ground with someone and relating to that and making them feel best. And it also just, you get to know people, and it's something that hopefully we're already doing. And they also feel like you care. And I want to know more about them. I want to know what you do. I want to know where you're from, where you're born, what you're skiing on, how big your foot is. Like, I want to know it all. That's how we connect. And the more I can connect with someone and build that trust, the better the experience is for everyone.
Yeah. And we got that, I think Angelo got that one from your bio on the national website, where we look, you say you have the skill set, the ability to engage with the underrepresented groups in snow sports. And that's kind of what we were thinking there. And like, wanted to make sure we give you a little where we got that from, and if you have anything else to say on that, because if you put it in your bio on the national site, you must care about that.
Those bios are strange, I will say. They're just like a lot of weird bullet points, but okay. The other thing with, people that are underrepresented in the snow sports industry, I'm super lucky that I work with a group out of the Northwest called Edge Outdoors, which gets women of Black, Indigenous, and people of color, of women of color in the snow sports industry. And that has been such a rewarding and like experience. And I've learned so much about how to, the smallest things that you can do to incorporate people and like make them feel valid and seen and a part of this community it's been really impactful. And I really want to thank Annette Diggs is the founder. And unfortunately, I don't get to work for Edge that much anymore, because 20% of the women that come through this Edge program, they become instructors. So now I have trained myself out of a job. So all of a few of the instructors that have come through the program, started to work at Stevens, are now teaching the Edge program. So I'm pretty proud. It's like the only time I'm really happy I like basically push myself out of a job, but they still pull me in from time to time to help. And yeah, I think skiing is one of the most amazing things on this earth. And the more people that are exposed to it and can make it happen and can sacrifice a few things and just to slide around with your friends, I would love to help people that don't feel as seen in this industry be a part of it, because it's a pretty cool thing to be a part of.
Mm-hmm. And my last question for you, what is Ellie's advice to those that desire to someday be a team member? What is it, the advice from Ellie for them to do now to get ready?
Grab a vacuum. But yeah, like put in the work and like other people will notice. That's what happened with me. Like I'm not a big self-advocator. I'm someone that likes to be tapped, and you keep doing what you're doing. And if you're doing the right things, people will take notice, and you don't have to be anybody but yourself to do it. And don't get too wrapped up in certification. There's so many other clinics than Cert 2 prep. And man, they're fun. I hardly went to any prep clinics. I went to a few to learn process. I just want to be a great ski teacher. And in doing so, I did pretty well with the assessments. Don't get wrapped up in it. Just learn about skiing. And if you love it and you're good at teaching and you're great with people and you learn how to ski better, you'll be successful. Yeah.
So Ellie, since making the team, give everybody a little peek behind that curtain. And because I think there's an assumption that at some point we stop training, we stop learning. It's just not the case. So since you've made the team, what's some of the best coaching you've gotten?
This is the day before mid-season training. I mentioned a bunch of us went to Beaver Creek early, and we're skiing around, and Michael was there, which was awesome. I really hadn't gotten to ski with Michael yet. I didn't meet him until the day before the tryout. I walked up to him and shook his hand and introduced myself because I had never met him. So it was my first time to ski with him. And we were both on the Nordica Multipistas. And I was like, well, first of all, I was like, I picked the right ski for the job. If coach has the same ski as me, I'm doing something right. So that was pretty cool. And I have it in a 175. And we're at Beaver Creek and we're skiing this really nicely groomed, beautifully groomed black diamond run called Centennial down to the bottom. And a bunch of my teammates are just letting it rip. So I start doing that too. And I'm just folding my ski over. Like it just couldn't handle everything I was trying to carve into it. And like 3/4 of the way through the day, Michael's like, Matalavage, you want to trade skis? And I was like, what? I was like, sure. And I knew that my ski wasn't holding up to what I was putting into it, but I don't know. I was like, I'll just be a little gentler on my ski. Like it's not made for this exactly. And yeah, so he's like, let's trade skis. And I'm like, what length is your ski? He's like, 185. And I was like, I've never skied a 185. And I put Michael's skis on, and man, I was flirting the line with just carving the crap out of that hill and them just taking me for a ride into the woods. Flirting the line the whole time. But I'd always been nervous about skiing bigger skis, and I needed it at that point in my ski career, my journey. And that was pretty eye-opening that I could do it. And he didn't have to say anything. He just saw something, asked a question, made it happen, and then made me realize it. And that's pretty great coaching too. That's a pretty great coach to recognize that, offer it, and do it in a way that was just like so casual. That was really cool. Yeah. I've had a lot of really cool opportunities this year. Some of the best coaching you can get is just following your teammates around. And in my travels, have been pretty lucky. I've driven south of Idaho a few times this year, down to Utah once, and then down to Colorado for when I worked the holidays at Vail. And on the way to and from Colorado this year, I stopped at Jackson Hole and skied with the twins. And that's a coaching experience in itself. From them and from the terrain. I work mostly at ski areas where you have to you're trying to generate speed and performance and that excitement into your turn. And Jackson Hole is so steep that you're trying to rein it in and manage it. So just some immediate coaching from the hill and realizing I probably need to be on some terrain more like this more often than I am. That was pretty eye-opening. And doing some synchronized skiing with sandwiched between the Flynn twins is pretty cool. And I can't see what's going on behind me, but I can match whoever's in front of me, and I can listen. And you can tell. You can tell when you're on it or not. And we hop in it pretty easily. So that was pretty eye-opening for me. That was a pretty satisfying moment. I actually was in George's academy group like 4 years ago. And I remember anytime I wanted to follow him, I would say, can you do this at like 60%? Can you go your 50%, your 70%? And now I'm like, George, do your 75%. Like I've bumped up a little bit. I'm getting there. But yeah, it's been pretty cool to have some coaching from my teammates, from my coaches, and just being able to spend time with them. I can't see, there's no way you can get better. You have to, just being around that many great people. And yeah, the other day, George and Anne and I were skiing around Jackson Hole on our slalom skis, which probably is not the ski of choice for most people at Jackson Hole, but it was really fun seeing the changes that we had to make on the snow conditions. And Anne is just such a clean skier, trying to follow her around and how quickly she can generate so much in her skiing. Like her second turn, she's 100%. And being that efficient is something that I really strive towards. And I really admire that in her skiing.
So next week, Angelo, that better be you at the tele tryout, the tele exam, baby.
Cool.
100% second turn, clean.
Okie doke.
Oh, Ellie, I can't thank you enough. And it's awesome. I know folks are going to love this. And even though you're that introvert, you chatted a lot today, which is awesome. That's it. The podcast forces you.
I think so. I mean, if I don't talk, we're all just going to sit here and stare at each other, and that's not nearly as exciting.
Right. Yeah.
You guys,
we finish the question and then wait.
Yep.
Yeah. Little the thumbs.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you guys for having me so much. I know we've been trying to do this for a few months, but Angelo knows I've always been a big fan of the podcast, and being on the podcast is pretty much a dream come true. So really thank you for having me. And
well, there's always an invitation back.
That's
I
right.
will
You can come
anytime. When I have more exciting things to tell you, I'll be back.
Well, we can have you back, and we'll celebrate Angelo's new gold pin next week. How's that?
Man, the pressure. You're just turning the pressure up.
Yes, I am, man. You got to get it done. Get it done.
Gotta get it done.
I think you're going to do fine, man.
Hmm?
I hope Mickey's there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, believe Mickey will be there.
Mickey will be. I think the CEO is going to be there. She'll be doing the level 2, I think.
Oh, cool.
More pressure.
Yeah.
Thanks. I'm so glad I joined this call today.
Yeah.
Angelo, you're going to do great. I already know
Yeah.
it.
Now I got to do you proud. All right. Challenge accepted. I'll do my best.
Cool.
That's all you can do.
Yeah. Well, Ellie, thanks so much. Hope the rest of your season's awesome. And I know the listeners out there, a lot of them I know one of our big ones, Ellen's been waiting for this one. So now we can tell Ellen it's her turn, because she's sent a couple emails. We got some stuff she wants to talk about, and we're here, right, Angelo, as soon as he finishes his tele exam next week.
I know she wants back on eventually. She does.
Yeah. She's a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. She can come on anytime. She can trump, Michael. She can trump Michael. We'll have Ellen on. Michael will get mad, but we'll take Ellen on. Well, sorry, Michael, we're busy.
Sorry. Ellen wants to jump on. We're going to hang up right now.
Yeah. All righty, man. Been a great chat. Everybody, this has been The Fall Line with Chaos and Company.